like a good way to brief Ken on the new models.
Speak of the devil, here comes Ken now.
Hope I didn't hold you fellas up. I'm sure anxious to get the scoop on the new cars. Where you going to start, Raleigh?
Since there's so much new to talk about, we're going to start with a quick rundown on what's new for 62, and then cover service highlights.
Yeah, we want you to know the new features and how they affect you service-wise. You'll find even more complete information in the reference book.
Sounds good to me. What comes first?
Well, Plymouth and Dodge models now come on a 116-inch wheelbase.
They sure look good to me. But what about the Valiant and Lancer lines?
In the Valiant line, there's a new two-door hardtop that's a beauty. It's called the Signet. The other model designations remain the same. There have been some changes in the Lancer line, too. There's a sporty new two-door hardtop model with bucket seats. It's called the Lancer GT.
That GT stands for Gran Turismo, Ken.
Sounds great, Raleigh, but what about service changes?
Well, we'll start with Plymouth and Dodge body changes. On the two-door and four-door sedan models, there's a new in or out adjustment at the lower end of the division bar. It controls the tilt of the vent wing. It's made from the underside of the door without removing the trim.
I suppose the screw reached through the hole in the door inner panel still controls the division bar up or down and fore or aft adjustments, huh?
Right, Ken. And you still adjust the regulator at the mounting plate to align the glass with the top of the door frame and vent wing.
A new window regulator is used on the rear doors of four-door sedans and station wagons. You adjust the pivot bracket instead of the regulator mounting plate to align the glass at the top of the frame.
Okay, I'll remember that.
On two-door sedans, the quarter glass can be aligned by adjusting the regulator mounting plate. In addition, the quarter glass front run channel in or out adjustment is made through a hole at the front of the quarter panel. Of course, you remove the access hole plug to make this adjustment. The fore or aft adjustment of the quarter glass front run channel is made at the inner quarter panel. You'll have to remove the trim to get at it.
I can see the quarter glass rear run channel is adjusted in or out as well as fore or aft from the inner panel. Those two- and four-door sedan adjustments look easy enough. How about hardtops?
On the front doors of all hardtops and convertibles, the in or out, fore or aft, and up or down adjustments at the lower end of the division bar are made the same as on the sedan models.
I understand. They're made on the underside of the door and through the hole in the inner door panel. How about the regulator?
To square up the glass in its opening, adjust the mounting plate. Nothing new about that. Now, here's the pitch on the rear run channels of the hardtop front doors. The tilt adjustments of the rear run channel are made through access holes at the rear of the door.
Upper one for belt line adjustment, lower one for roof rail fit, right?
Right, Ken. To move the front door glass into alignment with the division bar run channel, adjust the rear run channel. Don't change the division bar adjustment.
Okay, I'll watch it. Now tell me this. Aren't there any big changes in body service?
Keep your shirt on, Ken. Raleigh's coming up with something completely new.
Ken, this is the new glass stabilizing system used on Plymouth and Dodge four-door hardtop rear door glass. It's also used on two-door hardtop and convertible rear quarter glass. The glass is bolted to the frame. 4 spring-loaded nylon roller assemblies are used to guide the glass frame and the glass as it travels up and down the guide tracks. The front upper roller assembly is fixed to the frame. The other 3 roller assemblies float in horizontal channels in the frame.
It's really a smooth operating setup, Ken. Here's a tip on rear door glass removal. You don't have to unbolt the glass from the frame to get either the glass or frame out. The glass and frame comes out as an assembly through the opening in the top of the door.
I understand. Now what about adjustments on this setup?
Guide track and regulator adjustments are provided for glass alignment. You'll find the details on these adjustments in the reference book.
I'll read it carefully, Raleigh. Anything else new on bodies?
There's a new door latching and locking system on Plymouth and Dodge models. The outside handles are the push-button type. On the inside, push-pull knobs lock the doors and the inside handles. You can't open a rear door from the inside until the knob is pulled up.
That'll keep people, especially children, from opening rear doors accidentally.
What about adjustments, Raleigh?
Free play in the outside door handle push button can be adjusted by an Allen set screw in the rear face of the door.
An over-travel feature built into the remote control linkage eliminates remote control adjustment.
I see. One simple adjustment takes care of the door handles. That's good.
Here's another good feature on Plymouth and Dodge models. A new torsion bar check. On front doors, it's at the upper door hinge. On rear doors, at the lower hinge.
How about door check and hinge adjustments?
On Plymouth and Dodge, fore or aft adjustment of the front door will be easier to make. Simply remove the cowl kick pad to reach the hinge pillar bolts.
Good. I won't have to pull the front door trim to make that adjustment.
Here's something else new. The hood lock striker bolt has been eliminated on Valiant, Lancer, Plymouth, and Dodge models. This new lock is easier to operate and is more positive. Be sure and follow the adjustment procedure in the reference book.
I'll do that. What's new on engines, Raleigh?
The engine lineup is about the same as last year. Here are a few details that I'd like to tell you about, though. For example, on the 361 cubic inch engine, the manifold heat control valve is located at the rear end of the right-hand exhaust manifold. Be sure you don't overlook servicing this periodically to be sure it operates freely.
I'll watch it, Raleigh. What happened to the throttle linkage on this job, Raleigh?
That's the new flexible throttle linkage used on Plymouth and Dodge models. It's simpler in design, and most of the bell cranks and levers have been eliminated. The 7-strand stainless steel cable is enclosed in a low-friction plastic sleeve that doesn't require lubrication. Covering both of these is a wire sheathing that, in turn, is protected by an outer plastic covering. At the accelerator pedal, a plastic roller rides in a track on the back of the pedal. There's nothing to rattle and very little to service.
How about adjustments?
There's only one simple adjustment to make, and you use this adjusting tool. It looks like a pair of pliers. You'll find adjustment and important linkage lubrication details in the reference book.
Before Raleigh gets started on another new feature, somebody better turn the record.
The distributor has new ventilated ignition points, Ken. The stationary point has a hole in the center, which lets them run cooler. The points are larger diameter, so the electrical contact area is larger.
Raleigh, don't forget there's a new condenser used with these points.
That's right, Tech. The new condenser and points will give longer point life by reducing arcing and point buildup. There's nothing new or difficult on servicing these points.
What have they done to the starters? They sure are quiet.
That's the soft sound of the new Chrysler-built starter. It's used on all U.S. production except Chrysler models with manual transmission. All Canadian-built V8 models use it also.
What's new about this starter?
For one thing, it uses a die-cast aluminum housing. In addition, it has built-in reduction gearing with a ratio of 3.5 to 1 between the armature and the drive pinion. It's got a lot of other good points that you can read about later.
Whatever you do, don't try to take one of those starters apart until you've read the instructions in the shop manual. Incidentally, one of the future tech sessions will cover this and other electrical services in detail.
We'll be looking for it, Tech. Here's one that'll please you, Ken. All wiring from inside the passenger compartment terminates in a single multi-circuit connector which snaps into a hole in the dash panel and protrudes into the engine compartment. Wiring for the lights, accessories, ignition, and other electrical units plug into this connector. This new arrangement makes it easier to service because the connector provides a convenient break-in point for troubleshooting any circuit.
That looks real good to me. I'm glad to see it.
Printed circuit instrument clusters are used on U.S.-built Plymouth, Valiant, and Lancer, and Canadian-built Valiant models. The circuit is mounted on the instrument cluster. The lamps and instruments are connected directly into the printed circuits.
That sure ought to make a neater job and an easier one to work on.
You're so right. In addition, A new fuse block makes it easier to locate blown fuses. Each fuse is clearly identified on the block, so you can't go wrong. These fuses protect all circuits except the headlamps and windshield wipers.
The tail lamps and instrument lights are connected in the same circuit. So if there's trouble in this circuit, the panel lighting goes out and the driver knows that his tail lamps are not working.
Sounds real good to me. What about circuit protection on headlamps and windshield wipers?
Circuit breakers are used in those circuits. That's a safety feature that assures these circuits will operate intermittently, even if there is a short circuit. It's much safer than a complete blackout. Now, let's talk about brakes. All Plymouth and Dodge models have new servo contact brakes with bonded linings. In addition, a self-adjusting feature is built into the brakes on all four wheels. This eliminates the need for periodic brake adjustment.
Say, that really is a feature. I suppose the reference book has more information on how they work, huh?
To be sure, Ken. But remember this. Manual service adjustments are provided so you can set up the shoes to the proper clearance after installing new or rebonded shoes.
Thanks, Tech. I was going to ask about that.
Notice this. The master cylinder on power brake equipped cars is right out in the open, mounted on the front face of the booster.
That'll make it easy to check the fluid level. Say, what's the new power brake doing without the reserve tank and plumbing?
This is a new vacuum suspended booster. A dual diaphragm arrangement maintains the vacuum in the booster and eliminates the need for the reserve tank. Another thing, this new booster has a direct connection to the pedal push rod. Pedal free play and trigger arm adjustments are no longer necessary.
Raleigh, I tell you, you're going to spoil this guy with all these simplifications.
Don't worry, Tech. I'll keep him plenty busy. Now, the new Plymouth and Dodge parking brakes operate on the rear wheels. They're cable connected to the foot-operated parking pedal. You'll notice, too, that the pedal release is now a pull-out knob arrangement here on the left side of the instrument panel. Just pull the knob out to release the brake.
That's a good feature. Does that about cover brakes, Raleigh?
Yes, it does. So let's talk about the all-new 3-speed torque flight transmission. It will be used with V8 engines only. It's called the A727 to distinguish it from the A904 used with 6-cylinder engines.
In other words, two versions of the same basic design, huh?
Right, Ken. The main difference is this. The V8 engine version is designed to handle the greater engine torque.
Having just two similar automatic transmissions to service should simplify things.
That it will, Ken. Just be sure you use the new special tools required for this new transmission. And don't mix 8- and 6-cylinder torque flight parts that aren't interchangeable.
I'll watch it, Tech. What's next?
This new manual transmission gear shift. It's used on Plymouth, Dodge, Valiant, and Lancer models. It has a gear shift tube inside the steering column instead of the external one formerly used on Plymouths and Dodges.
You'll find that the shift is more positive and the linkage is easier to adjust.
I sure welcome that. Is there anything new on the steering gear?
There sure is, Ken. Plymouth, Valiant, Dodge, and Lancer models use a new low-effort manual steering gear featuring recirculating steel balls. This unit has a new die-cast aluminum housing. As far as adjustments are concerned, service specifications and procedures have been changed. For example, the worm shaft bearings are adjusted by a large threaded adjusting nut similar to that used on last year's Valiant and Lancer models. The cross shaft is adjusted by the adjusting screw and lock nut method that you're familiar with.
The ball nut and worm shaft will be serviced as an assembly. The balls won't be serviced, so don't try taking them out. You'll need new service tools to remove and install the thrust bearing cup and the cross shaft seal.
There's also a new tool for removing and installing the needle bearings on Plymouth and Dodge gears. The new gear is mounted directly on the K-shaped engine support crossmember by 3 bolts. There are no wedges or shims used to align the gear at its mounting.
This gear is going to be easier to service in this location.
What's the story on alignment, Raleigh?
That's something you won't have to worry about. This new enclosed pre-lubricated universal coupling connects the steering shaft to the worm shaft in the gear. It takes care of alignment automatically.
What's new on power steering, Raleigh?
The most important change is standardization of the cross shaft diameter. All Plymouth, Dodge, Valiant, and Lancer models have a 1 1/8 inch diameter shaft. The same new tools will service the cross shaft bearings and seals on both power and manual gears.
Looks like you kept the chassis lube story till last, Raleigh.
I was just getting around to the story on front suspension and steering linkage lubrication. All models use new pre-lubricated upper and lower control arm ball joints. New rubber seals prevent loss of lubricant and keep out road splash and dirt.
What are those plugs in the ball joints for, Raleigh?
I was just about to get to that. They should be removed at 32,000-mile intervals and lubricated with a special lubricant applied with low pressure, 15 to 20 pounds maximum. The lubricant will be available from Mopar and Chrysler.
32,000 miles. Wow.
The new tie rod ends are permanently lubricated. Rubber seals plus rubber protectors seal the lubricant in and dirt out. The ball joint and tie rod seals and the tie rod protectors should be examined periodically to be sure they're not cut or torn. Damaged seals and protectors must be replaced immediately to protect the parts.
Anything special about servicing the seals?
There sure is, Ken. There are some new service tools available to install new seals. Unless you use them, you'll damage the seals trying to put them on.
Well, Ken, that pretty much wraps up what we can tell you about the new models. There's a lot more information in the reference book. Be sure and look it over. Seems like Tech has something on his mind.
I sure do. These new cars have some mighty fine new features, but they can't service themselves. That's where all you master technicians and certified car care play an important part. And don't forget, good service sells cars. Keep your customers, the real bosses of Main Street, satisfied with the treatment they get in your service department.